Hello, this is Brian. Today is a beautiful Sunday, September 19th, 2021. I am in San Clemente Canyon, can't say it right, Marian Bear Memorial Natural Park, between Clairemont, neighborhood Clairemont, and the neighborhood of University City here in San Diego. And I want to provide a Spotlight on Shrubs episode today. Today's Spotlight focuses on quite a neat plant. It's native, very common, sometimes grows in such high abundance that people might think it's an alien weed, but it's not. It is Coast Goldenbush, and this is Isocoma menziesii. Now, there are at least three different varieties of Isocoma menziesii, and by deduction, I am ruling out varieties. So this is going to apply to basically Isocoma menziesii variety menziesii and Isocoma menziesii variety vernonioides. These might be variety menziesii. I really have a hard time telling menziesii variety menziesii and variety vernonioides apart because they are both generally upright subshrubs. They're subshrubs slash arguably herbaceous perennials when they're young, but when they mature, they form a quite woody base that is quite distinctive and therefore can be labeled as a shrub in its older years. So I'm just going to refer to this as Isocoma menziesii this video because vernonioides and variety menziesii are very similar. So I'm going to lump them two together in this one video as Isocoma menziesii. Variety cedoides is, I believe, more of a coastal plant with the stems lying on the ground and maybe curling up at their tips. Menziesii and vernonioides are pretty much upright, and I will treat them together in this one video. So here we got it. Coast Goldenbush. The name should be obvious by just looking at this plant this time of year as to why this is a golden bush. The flowers, the flower heads. They are a brilliant yellow, beautiful late summer through mid-fall blooming period for this plant. So basically from anywhere from sometimes as early as August, late August, sometimes into November, this plant in its peak will knock your socks off. Like I said, a lot of people pass by it, assume it's some type of invasive weed, but it is very much a native and very awesome part of our plant culture here in California. So, like I was saying before, it starts out quite herbaceous, and you can see this younger plant here hasn't really started developing wood yet. The stems are mostly herbaceous, maybe some slight wood forming at the very base of this one, and then younger ones like this are completely herbaceous. Here's a young seedling of one, and here's a younger sapling of one right here. Those are completely herbaceous. However, like I said, when the plant attains several years to maybe even a decade or so in age, sometimes I believe these could probably live for a few decades considering how old and gnarly they get. Then they form these woody trunks, as you can see here. Woody with brownish gray, shreddy furrowed bark. This is basically when it's become a shrub as opposed to a subshrub as it is in its youth. So the leaves of Isocoma menziesii are quite narrow. You kind of see here they're quite narrow and they're fascicled along the stem. So they're all bunched together along each node. And they're quite narrow, kind of thin. Sometimes they have teeth on them, the edges have teeth, and sometimes they are entire. That could, don't quote me on that, could be a diagnostic feature between menziesii and vernonioides, but don't quote me on that. I'll have to put up a little more of an informational piece on the comments or description section of the video. But these leaves here tend to be more entire. In other words, smooth edged, which is pretty characteristic of these plants here in this population. In fact, right now, I'm not seeing any plants with toothed edges. This could be variety menziesii, but I will try to look up the information a little bit more online and post a comment about it. Now, here we go. This one has some toothed edges on some of its leaves. Some of the edges on some of these leaves are toothed. So again, I think what it tells you is that Isocoma menziesii as a species has some pretty decent diversity in its leaf structure. And you'll notice the leaves lower down on the stems are quite a bit larger than the leaves closer towards where the flower heads are. And that's pretty much the case with a lot of these sunflower family plants. Yes, this is a member of the Asteraceae, the sunflower family. A lot of sunflower family plants have larger leaves towards the base, as you can see here, and smaller leaves towards the top. And they're much more likely to be fascicled along the middle and higher portions of their stems. So the reason why this is a good time between now and through most of October is the plants are in bloom. These are not in full bloom yet. They're still quite striking. As you see here, they don't have any ray florets. These are all discoid florets. And in the Asteraceae, each what looks like an individual flower is a flower head. And in this case, with discoid flower heads. So you don't see any petal-like ray florets on these. And that's quite common in a lot of our golden bushes. Not all of them. Ericameria. Golden bushes, you have Isocoma, you got Ericameria, Haplopappus. A lot of plants consist of the golden bush group. And not all of them lack ray florets, like Ericameria linearifolia has ray florets as well. But you can see here, in about a week or two, probably into October, these plants are going to be really brilliantly yellow, more so than now. And you can see their flower buds are all scaly and interesting looking. So what happens is, after the plant flowers, the flower heads turn into seed heads. And this one's already starting to get some seeds on it. And they form these little fuzzy achenes. That's what these are called. Kind of similar to dandelions. And with the ease with which this plant's seeds spread, also becomes the ease with which this plant reproduces. This plant can be locally extremely abundant. And here it's a fairly small, medium-sized stand of this plant. However, there are some places where this plant is everywhere. Why? Because it has a tendency to spread, especially in areas of disturbed soil. This is one of those plants, like a lot of Asteraceae, a lot of sunflower family plants, that like to spread after disturbance. And obviously, a trail side is a place of disturbed soil, because this area was disturbed to make the soil, and the constant foot traffic through this area keeps the soil in a somewhat perpetually disturbed state, albeit not as much as in the middle of the trail. But you can see these plants colonize very easily. They are very easy to germinate from seed. They don't need any special treatment. I have grown these plants a few times before. Still have a couple of them at my house. A lot of them have kind of died off, I guess, from maybe some lack of really good care on my end. But normally these plants are pretty drought tolerant. However, I had them in more nursery type conditions, so they were used to being watered more than they would be here in the wild. But these plants are extremely easy to germinate. A lot of times the plants with those type of seeds that I just showed you, these little seed heads, a lot of times these plants are extremely easy to germinate. They use that as a method of colonizing disturbed areas so that they can take advantage, because they grow quite easily. thing about plants that grow quite easily, they can take advantage of all these disturbed sites, like this right here, this non-native grassland here. It didn't colonize quite fast enough to prevent the colonization of alien herbs and weeds and grasses, but here along the edge, they at least give the native plants a chance to regain a foothold eventually. So a lot of these Asteraceae plants, sunflower family plants, use the millions of seeds, fast dispersal, and easy germination and high germination rates so they can colonize, so that their plants can spread and then they can maintain a healthy population, and disturbance helps them do it. So there you have it. Coast Goldenbush, Isocoma menziesii, and we're talking more specifically about varieties menziesii and variety vernonioides. Again, I'm not 100% sure what variety this is here. I will do some research and I will post something in the comments and likely in the description section to supplement this information. But you're here in Southern California, keep an eye out for Coast Goldenbush, one of our many awesome fall flowering favorites here. So there you have it. Isocoma menziesii, Coast Goldenbush. This was a spotlight on shrubs video with Brian. Hope you enjoyed watching it. Come out here and check out these plants this fall. Enjoy the beautiful blooms. And I'll see you on the next episode.